Yeah, Hyperlight Drifter. So again, it looks like a lot of stuff, but if we break it down, like the little blue thing in the corner, it's literally just like doing the 2-3 animations, 2-3 frames. The frog is going like small, medium, and then big, and it just goes back to the original, and it loops back. It's like a little wind thing that just goes back. That's all it does. So this is the kind of thing we're going to be looking at. 2D animation initially, about how to create like life using very, very, very minimal work. And this will carry over when you go to 3D in the future, if you do 3D, because all the same concepts apply. They'll work in 3D, but the same concepts still apply. Sometimes the animation even becomes part of the gameplay. I again forgot the name of this game. Guild of the Necromancer. So this game with the animation specifically, it's timed to the music and it forms an indicator. So when the animation reaches a certain point, you can kind of see when they squash and they stretch. When it hits a certain point, that's the beat, and you can jump. So you can use the animation as a timing. It has like a timer down the bottom, so you can see the timing of the beat as well. But you can also use the animation of everything in the game as indicators. You can kind of see that working because the game is all about timing. That is an example of a sprite sheet. Okay, so a lot of the animations you'll see are using something called sprite sheets. There's two types of animations we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at sprite sheet animation, and we're also going to be looking at deforming animation. Deforming animation is when I grab something and like literally I warp it and then make it like animate in Engine. A sprite sheet is where I have different images and it like quickly plays those images. If I play them quickly enough, it looks like an animated motion, and the player kind of like accepts it as an animation. So if we go back to like this, you can kind of see the frog in particular. That is like 3 frames of a sprite sheet, and it's just going through all of them. Okay. The more low fidelity we get, the more we can get away with sprite sheets, because people are used to like pixel art looking kind of janky, and the sprite sheets have like a lot of different frame changes in between each frame. If we start going to like realistic 3D, you start getting less able to get away with like it goes from here to here to here. With realistic 3D, you probably want it to like smoothly expand and go back in. That makes sense? Yeah? Okay. All right, so hopefully you can kind of see from the sprite sheet what this does. This is from Spelunky. It actually probably has too many frames, but whatever. So you can kind of see the frog, it's there, it sits, and then it opens its mouth, gets bit, that's an attack, and then it closes back its mouth. So you can kind of see it doing that as it goes along. And in game, essentially what we tell the computer to do, what we tell Unity to do, is we tell it how many rows there are and how many columns. And then we say, basically, we're telling it, play row 1, column 1, play row 2, column 2, and play it at this speed. And what speed we tell it to, it'll iterate through those images, so it'll look like it's animating. It's the same exact concept as like actual animation, 2D animation, same exact concept. If you've seen something, I don't know if anyone's ever seen this in like a science museum, yeah, where like you look through the thing and it like rotates. It's the same exact concept. Because the images move so fast, they look like they're in motion, but they're not. With our animation in particular, this is a full, do you know what like frames movies run at with minimum? 25 minimum frames. We have up to 60, we have up to 90 nowadays, but 25 is the minimum. With games, we don't have to run at 25. Especially with pixel art games, we can run at much, much lower frame rates. So don't stress. So I'm not telling you for every animation make 25 frames. We can get away with like 3 or 4. And we'll see that now in a sec. This is like, I guess, keep these in mind. These are things called the 12 principles of animation. They were pioneered by Disney, but they work for all animation. And this is just a really quick video that goes through all of them. So these concepts, so that kind of like squishiness makes it look a lot more animated. Squash and stretch. Anticipation is like, you see, like it gets ready. So before it even moves, the player knows it's about to go a certain position. So it's almost like a wind up. Staging is basically just like how you present it. So maybe not flat on, maybe it's a little bit side on, so you can see more of the volume. So this is basically saying, if I start at this, I want it to end at this, and then I want to end in a different pose. Right? That's pose to pose animation. So that's like an acceleration and a deceleration. And then this is like most things should move in arcs because they look nicer when they move in arcs. You shouldn't have a linear. The only exceptions are stuff like robots. They can have linear motions, but most humans move in arcs, and like most things move in arcs. And then finally, timing just controls like how fast something is. That's just giving depth to something. And this is basically just saying make something cute. All right, so these 12 principles, they're all quite simple, but ideally we want to apply them to everything that we're creating. Again, how far we go depends on the style that we're making. So if I'm making like something like, if I'm making Mario, I'm probably going to be way more bouncy, it's way more cutesy. They're really exaggerated. If I'm making something like The Last of Us 3, I'm probably going to be a lot more realistic, a lot more slow, and the movement will be much more based in real life. So it really depends what we're making. In general, though, all those concepts still apply. So we are going to be using limited frames. Okay, so if you want to be crazy and make like 35 frame animations, I have had that before. People can do that. It's fine. But we're going to be smart. Ideally, try to be smart and learn how to use limitations. So specifically with pixel art, specifically with like low fidelity 2D art, we use very few frames. So if you look at like the animation of Scott Pilgrim there, that is actually like very, very few frames. They're just like looping them and going back and forth if you kind of pay attention. Like that last ending bit where it's like resting the post attack, that's literally like 3 frames and it just keeps looping between them. And they're like alternating between frames. That tank is like, I want to say 2 frames. Yeah, I think it's only 2. That tank's only 2 frames and it's just repeating those 2 frames and it makes it look a lot bigger than it is. Okay. So for example, instead of the whole 45, in this scenario that on the bottom, that animation was created out of only 4 frames. And in game, that would look fine if it was like a little cute little 2D game. People are used to that kind of low frame rate type of game visuals. There's other tricks we can do as well to accentuate movement. This is a concept called smearing. You can kind of see it there where like the sword swings and they actually like bake in the animation of the smear. So again, instead of having loads of different frames, so like one for here, one for here, one for here, one for here, we just have like one up, one down, but it has a smear, and then a final finish where it doesn't have the smear, and it looks like a whole swipe animation, but actually it's like 3 frames. Now this came from necessity. We used to have to do this because literally we didn't have space on like cartridges or CDs for the game, and now it's a stylistic choice. Okay, again, we'll also look at like completely computer generated animation. We'll look at that towards the end. For the characters, we'll probably animate the characters using like Unity animation tools, and those we can have like 100 frames a second because the computer is doing it, so it's fine. All right. But for stuff like this, what we're going to generate today, we'll generate them much lower. Here's another example of smear in action. So it kind of like makes it look like it's there's a lot more motion than it is. If that makes sense. But again, these are like maybe 5 frames at most. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4. I can't really tell. But it's not that many frames. The smears just make it look like it has a lot more animation frames than it does. And then we'll also look at stuff like this, where just very, very simple changes that looks like water flowing, but literally it's just a few lines moving up and down. And some like, there's like 2 frames for the top. If you see that little water splash, it's literally like no splash, splash, no splash, splash. It just keeps looping. Okay. And the same here as well. This one is probably not This is probably not sprites. This is probably a texture offset, so it's like offsetting the texture tiles, and it probably just like in code moving it down. If you see the waterfall, and at the bottom, those little like sparkles and stuff, the little splashes of water, those we'll look at. There's something called a particle effect. So they're not related to Spritesheets, but there's a separate thing. But again, we'll also look at that. Okay, like that. That's a particle effect. All right. When we're going to be doing this, be careful of your timings. You can kind of see this GIF. The timings are crazy. Like that fire is ridiculous. It's moving way, way too fast. Whereas the one in the back left is a bit more realistic. Like not realistic, but it's a bit more like suited to a game of this like visual style, right? Bottom right one is crazy. It's going way too fast. So timing becomes very important for something like this. Okay, there's a few other tricks here and stuff like that that you can read. Sorry, that you can read later. This is what we're going to do today. We're going to be creating 2 Spritesheets. I'm going to create one now so you can see what I'm making, and I'll show you how to make it. Hopefully we'll have time to bring it to Unity as well. Is that okay? Any questions before we begin? Yes. Yes. Sure. No. Just go with something you want to do. To be honest, don't be worried about being, let's say, good, right? Like, because I always get this question every year where it's like, oh, I'm not good at drawing. First of all, you can learn. There's like rules you can follow, like the color theory thing. We'll look at like shape language later on. There's little things you can do, and also even if you're let's say bad, or if you have like programmer art, if it's consistent, if the whole art style looks the same and is consistent, they're always the same, it's completely fine. Like I'm sure people have played games like, I don't know, Pony Island or Undertale or whatever it is. Like they're not like crazy high fidelity, but they're consistent. They look like they come from the same thing. So I would rather have consistency than like a beautiful hand drawn thing, but like the main character looks like a blob. That doesn't make any sense. We are always looking for consistency. Okay, so we're sorry. Any other questions before I continue?
Define artifact.
Define artifact.
Background artifact.
Thing. 2 things. So I'm going to be going into Photoshop. Again, I know people are always confused about the resolution thing. It literally is just how big is the thing that I'm going to make. So can someone give me just an idea? It can be anything. Like, no, sorry, I mean like something to make, like grass or torch or like mushroom. Oh, why you like it? It would probably be useful, right? Okay, so we're probably going to do a fire. So that's my screen. Let's say my fire is like there. I know my screen is like, is it 1024? I think it's 1024 high. So the fire is going to be about a quarter of it. There'll be like 256. Maybe I'll make it an eighth. So I'll do 128. Should I do 128? I'll do 128. We'll see. If it's too small, I'll resize it. So 128 by 128. Create. Okay, so I have like this one background. Great. Sorry, this like empty thing. I will close this window because you don't know this window yet. So, go away. Bye bye. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and create a fire animation. So the first thing we need to do is set up that window that I showed you. That window allows me to do animations. Let me show you a really, really quick example. I just have my crappy drawing tablet. You can also use your mouse if you don't have your drawing tablet. So window, and we are going to look for something called a timeline. And you can dock that in here in the bottom, or anywhere you want to. I kind of like docking it in the bottom. Cool. Window, timeline. And it allows me to do a create frame animation. So let me just really quickly show you something. So let's say I start off with that layer, and then I'm going to make this like drip upwards. So it's going to go from that frame to that. Sorry, from this frame to that frame. There's another one. And this is very crappy. Just give me a second. Do one more. I'm doing a lot of frames, but I just want to show you the concept. Okay. So hopefully I can do, I have them all on different layers. Hopefully I can do create frame animation and make frames from layers. And then if I play this, so you see what I'm doing, right? So it's frames and each thing, and it'll do this animation. Look at that smear thing that I did. So I did like a little trail that's like a concept of smear. I did the squash and stretch, so it squishes and like kind of squashes flat. And then it loops back to the original, so it comes back to like the blob in the center. So that was a lot of frames. We won't be doing that many frames. We'll do a much simpler version, but I just wanted to show you basically how that works. I can export this as a GIF, yeah. So I did make frames from layers. It's like top right here. And then, oops, sorry. Maybe I have to pause it. Hold on one sec. Let me just delete all of that. Here and make frames from layers. So it just takes all the layers that are in the Photoshop file, orders them based on the order that they were created, and then I can just play through them. Not right click, just click on this little hamburger menu. Yeah, and then make frames from layers. Okay. Yes.
So what is the
By like.
Yeah,
by like this order.
Oh.
Any other questions? Yes. So I can like swap them, I can like rotate them. So this timeline is not what we're going to bring to Unity. You know, that's a bit confusing. This timeline is just for me to test. So if I'm testing this, I'm like, oh, that works. If I want to, I can select them all, change their timing as well, 0.1 seconds. So this is a bit slower. I can do like a custom one, and select them all. Other, and let's do like 0.75. Okay, so I can control it, but this is just for me to test it. What we're going to do is we're going to export these layers. Each layer, we're going to export them individually, and we're going to merge them together in something called a Spritesheet. Okay, but I haven't done that yet. I'm just showing you the animation thing first. But I'll do the whole process, including a Spritesheet, including bringing to Unity now. Okay, so I'll do a fire because people want fire, which is fine. Delete all my frames. You just hit this little delete button there. Okay, so I'm gonna deal with the fire. I'm not gonna worry about my timeline for now. I just want to set up the frames first. So I'll probably start off with, first of all, a brush that doesn't look like this. I'll probably go for a cloud brush. Oh my gosh. Where's my cloud brush? Okay. Okay, cool. Alright, so it's kind of fiery. Is there a better cloud one? No, the other one is better. Smoke. Alright, whatever. So fire usually has like, let's start off with, usually we want to work from darker to lighter. So if what I probably want to do is look at a reference fire. Images. And we can kind of see there's a darker orange and then like a lighter orange, yellow, and then towards the middle it's like almost white hot. The same with this, even the realistic ones, same kind of thing. So that's kind of what I want to do. So let's start with a darker orange. And I'll do like just 3 frames probably. And then I'll go to a lighter orange. And notice that I'm changing the color, but I'm also changing the brightness. We kind of want to do both. And I'm in a very low opacity right now. Okay, we're kind of getting a fire look there. And let's go to, let's go to yellow. Again, brighter again, because it gets hotter towards the center. So it gets brighter. Bracket keys, square bracket keys. And then finally for the little middle, let's do like a white hot thing. Okay. Yeah, just by default. It's one of the ones from the Evidence concept art pack. I'm going to do the smudge tool, small little smudges, so I can like drag out a few tendrils. So I'll smudge it like that. So we're kind of getting, do you know what I mean? Cool. All right, so frame 1, job done. What I'm gonna do then is I can duplicate that. So right click and duplicate layer, or Control J will do the same thing. And now we need to edit this layer, right? So I can either use the smudge tool, I can also do a thing called the liquify tool. Filter, filter liquify. Zoom in. And I can make it like, liquify just basically lets me distort the image. Okay, so it goes from here to there, and again I can duplicate that layer, and then let's do another liquify on it. Okay, I can smudge it as well if I want to with the smudge tool. And now, before I do anything, I just want to kind of test it. So make frames from layers. Let's make slow these down. Okay, so I can kind of see that it's not amazing. It kind of like the top moves, but the bottom doesn't move that much. It kind of just like blobbles to the side, but I kind of want the whole thing to move, so that's fine. I can still edit each layer individually. That's not a problem. So I can grab this. Let's do a bigger smudge on this. And I can also, if I want to, keep painting on it. So I can add like specks, for example, like little sparks. Let's try that again. Oop, they're all off. It's really annoying. I need to do this each time. Delete. Make frames from layers. So a little bit better. It's going a bit fast. Slow. Okay, so a bit better again, and I can just keep tweaking on that and just tweaking each layer until I have it what I kind of want. Does that make sense? Okay. So we just do a tiny bit more. This much. Hopefully these look better. I don't know. Okay, like it's really fast, but it's fine. Get rid of these. Okay, so a little bit better, and especially like when it's on screen, it's going to be kind of that small. It's pretty good. Okay, so for 5 minutes, that's fine. I won't spend too much more time on this. So what I can do now is I need to create my sprite sheet. Because I can save this as a GIF, for example. So I can save a copy. And on the computer, can I save this GIF from here? Oh. GIF. Save on the desktop. Flame test. Cool. And that will open in like Chrome or whatever. So it is a GIF. But Unity doesn't take GIFs, so I can't do that. I can't just take a GIF and put it into Unity. What I need to do is I need to save each layer individually. So layer 1, file, save copy, computer. Let's go to design practice. Folder called flame sheet png flame 1. Okay. It can, but let's just leave it at PNGs for now. It can take PSDs and it can do layer sorting, but yes. Yes. I'm not going to import as a folder. I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I have that in. Hold on. So I have that all here. Flame sheet 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I saved each one individually. All good so far? Yeah. Sorry. In Photoshop, no. If you have Procreate on like an iPad, they do have audience skinning. It's an animation mode, not in Photoshop. I think Kryta has it as well, and maybe Coral. So it just depends on what you have. I don't think there's audience skinning in Photoshop. Onion skinning just means like all the frames are there, but all the ones that are not selected right now are visible, but really, really low transparency. So I can see the full animation. I can reference it to the other layers, which is very, very useful. The animation mode in Procreate will do that if you have an iPad. But no, Photoshop doesn't have it as far as I know. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Right, so I've saved the 3 layers, the 3 images, right? I can just bring it in like this. It's not a problem. I can literally just bring in the 3 images into Photoshop, into Unity, sorry, and Unity will play it. It's not a problem. But I want to make something called a sprite sheet. So the thing you saw where it's like 1, 2, 3. So I want to make that. So what I need to do is I need to make an image, an empty image that is the same size as these 3 images, so I can place them in there. Okay, so what's same size? So Yes. So one image, another image, another image. Assuming I'm going left to right. So what would that be? The height would be 128 because they're each 128, correct? What will be the width? 128 by 3 is? I think it's 384. Am I right? Yeah. So I'm going to create that. And you can see I've got 1, 2, 3. And if you remember from the guides, grids, and slices thing from last week, so edit, preferences, guides, grids, and slices. Let's make the grid every 128 because this is a 128, and you can see I have 128, 128, 128. Okay? And all I need to do is go to that flame sheet and drag and drop each one of them in. So flame 1 goes here. Let's drag it into the Photoshop will snap it. Enter to apply. Flame 2 goes there. Cool, throw it in the center. Flame 3 goes there. Snap it there. Done. And then we just need to save this as one sheet by itself. So PNG, and I'll call this flame sheet. And flame sheet has all three of them all together, equally spaced. Is that okay? All good so far? So what Unity will do is take frame 1, play frame 1, play 2, frame 2, play frame 2. So let's look at that in Unity. Yeah, still have a bit of time, so I'm going to speed run this. But don't worry, I'll have the video up, and Serena will be there after this. So let me make a new scene. New scene. Oh my gosh. Basic 2D. Okay, and I want to assets create folder, fire sheet. I just want one folder for this. And I'm going to drag in that flame sheet. There it is. Pixels per unit, 128. I need to tell it that it's not a sprite mode single. I need to tell it that it's multiple because I have multiple sprites in this one sprite sheet. I need to go to the editor. And now I need to tell the editor how many there are in here. So I can do like, for slice, I can do by grid, by cell size or cell count. They're both the same, really. I can do cell size and say each grid is 128 by 128. Does that make sense? So basically I'm telling it, cut this sprite sheet into grids of 128 by 128, and that's done now. So that's fine. And what that allows, oh, I didn't slice it, sorry. Grid by cells 128, 128, slice. And that gives me, this is one sprite, that's another sprite, that's another sprite. Let's close, save. And if I open this up now, it has 3 different sprites. And I can use each one individually, that's fine. That's not what I'm going to do it for, but each of these are individual sprites. The same concept applies if I have a sprite sheet of loads of different things. I would do the same. And I can either slice it by grid, or I can manually tell it, slice this sprite out, this sprite out, this sprite out. Yeah. PNG. Always PNG. Pretty much always. As someone said, you can bring in PSDs to Photoshop, but let's just work with PNGs for now. All right, so let me delete that. So what I want is, I want one of the flame sheets. Let's just put it here. And essentially I want to tell this to animate. So it has a sprite renderer. If I press play, it obviously won't do anything because it has no animations. It's just going to be like there. What I can do though is add an animation to it. So window, animation, and let's create an animation. Make sure I'm selecting the flame sheet so it knows to begin animating flame sheet, create an animator animation clip. I can just tell it, create it for me, please. Create, cool. Let's call the animation fire. Great. And now I have an animation. The timeline in Unity is quite powerful. This animation thing, I can do all sorts of stuff. I can animate like position, scale, but right now I just want to animate the sprite sheet, okay? Like changing between one sheet to another. So I can do like, go this, and then go from this sprite to that sprite to that sprite. Let's play. I need to change it. Oh, sorry. I need to record. Okay, so frame 1, flame sheet 0. Let's go to frame 2, flame sheet 1, frame 3, flame sheet 2. I'm just changing the sprite that it's playing. And if I press play, that should animate. Why isn't it animated? Animating function 0. Fire. Oh, it is. Why isn't it working? Is it because I'm still wet? No, it should let me play though. No, it's not playing at all. It is working. You can see it working there. No, it already added it for me. I don't know if I need to tick that on. I don't know why it's not playing. It is working. Huh? Let me just press play and see if it plays. It does. Okay. So it is working. I just don't know why it's not. I should be able to test it by playing it here. I don't know why that's not working. I don't know if that's because contiguous match. No, that's unrelated. Okay, I'm not sure why, but I should be able to press play here to test it, right? Yeah, I don't know why it's not working, as I can see. Okay, but instead of that, I need to also change the speed that it's playing. Let's turn on preview. Why no play? Okay, it allows me to do this, but it doesn't allow me to play. I'm not sure why. Sorry, what was someone saying? Like that? I don't think so. Why have they changed everything in Unity? Okay, it is working. I just need to. This number is the keyframe. Like, we go to 2, 3. It just goes to that keyframe. Yeah, I should have. I don't know if it's just because I'm not. I should have a time frame as well, like a speed, a sample rate. But it's not showing for me at the moment, and I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong. Don't think I am. Sprite render animator. Beginning. Where is my frame? I can create new animations as well, just FYI, so I can have it play other frames just by creating a new clip. This should have a sample frame rate. It's not showing me a frame rate. I do not know why. Here, frames. Oh, it's hidden now. That's so dumb. Okay, I need to hit Y. So this was there by default. This used to always be there. We want to have show sample rate here because sample rate is how many frames per second it's playing. Again, it won't let me try this, but I want to sample maybe 10 frames a second. So that is, before it was set at 60 frames a second. I've set it to 10 frames a second, so it will play at the speed of 10 frames a second now. And you can see it's much, much, much slower. Okay. I do not know why you need to turn that on now, but just so you know, it is there. Here in this little like tiny settings thing, show sample rate. And you can set like basic sample rates as well. Okay. You can set if you want to see it in seconds, or you can set it if you want to see it in frames. So it just depends on the type of animation you want to do. Okay, so just be aware, it's right here. Show something. It should be that way. All right, let me stop recording.